Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today, this is Grant Cameron. We've had some glitches in getting this thing going. It was supposed to go live, but we're taping it. And the subject tonight is the Skinwalker Ranch book again, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, which has gotten a lot of press and a lot of discussion. And what we're going to tonight talk about is hitchhikers and shadow people. There's also the orbs, but we're not going to talk so much about that tonight. But we've brought in a panel of people that I think are experts on this. When I took a look at the book and what they were doing, my first impression is they have no clue. It's the old story that if you're a physicist, hammer, everything looks like a physicist nail. If you're a chemist, hammer, everything looks like a chemistry nail. And they had nobody on the ranch from what I could see in the book that had any sort of background in parapsychology or psychology or religion or anything like that. And they're running their experiments. So I'm going to try to bring in some of the people tonight, experts who can talk about some of the things that might have been missed at the ranch. And there's a lot of skeptical stuff that's already come out. You know, people talking about, we're going to be showing some photographs of shadow people tonight. And some people are talking about, oh, there's going to be dust particles and lens flares and stuff. And so there's going to be some backlash, but I think this is the material that's coming out tonight is going to be very unique because I think these people that I brought in understand what's actually going on and what they should have been doing and what may have alleviated some of the problems and completely turn around the argument that they're putting out that this is a 180 acre ranch in Utah that's a threat to national security. So the people I've brought in, I've got Desta Barnaby. I'm at Desta Barnaby's estate here in Winnipeg. And I'm also with Matt the Pond Guy, who you'll see on here, and he's going to be asking questions as well. And Matt is in from Toronto, and his Toronto Maple Leafs are playing here tomorrow, and they are going to get beat bad. And this comes to the old idea where people always say to me, you know, this whole thing about good aliens and bad aliens. And so the analogy is, are there good hockey teams and evil hockey teams? Is the Toronto Maple Leafs an evil hockey team? And no, there's just hockey teams. There are no evil hockey teams and good hockey teams. And there are no referees that are playing for people, but Toronto will still lose tomorrow. But you know, Matt is in from Toronto. One of the other people I brought in was my good friend Ron Johnson from Utah, the great state of Utah, right outside the Skinwalker Ranch. And we're going to show some of Ron's photographs. How you doing tonight, Ron?
Good. And yourself?
Super. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for all the material you've over the years. You provided me a lot of stuff on experiencers, and we're going to get a little bit into ghost phenomena and EVPs and all this kind of stuff, because I think that's what we're missing here. As these guys are down one little alley and they don't realize this is something that goes across all the paranormal phenomena. And I think you've researched a lot of them. And so I appreciate your being on here. Melinda Leslie is joining us from Sedona, Arizona, and she runs UFO Skywatch there. She takes people out to watch stuff in the sky with high-end glasses and stuff like that.
Military night vision goggles.
Military.
And
number 3 or number 4 have you got?
How many?
No, number 3.
Generation 3.
Generation
3 military night vision goggles. And last night was tour 1,453.
Wow.
So I've done it a few times.
And I was there. I can attest that I was there not before you were running it, when somebody else was running it. I saw 48 objects in 90 minutes. So I mean, it is, if you're in Sedona, sign up for the tour, get Melinda to take you out, and you'll see some stuff.
And I just want to add, for being on this panel, I was part of a professional paranormal investigation team for 15 years. And besides doing the tours, I'm a full-time medium here in Sedona. And I teach classes in psychic and mediumship development, and I have over many years. And like I said, I was part of a paranormal investigation team for 15 years. So I'm going to bring that knowledge and experience to bear on this panel. There you go.
There you go. And I'll send you a big check. We were going to have Chase Kletsky on here. She has just bought a cabin in Pennsylvania. Chase has a situation where she's taking some medication. She doesn't want to come on today while she's taking this medication, but she did give me a message. But I'll read the message that she talked about. I have strong feelings about this. She's talking about the subject tonight, the shadow people and the hitchhiker. I have strong feelings about this, and even some of the equipment they use. Example, the EMF pods. The theory is if you raise your EMF high enough, it opens portals and can produce apparitions. Idiots. They have no idea what they're doing, or what if they are disturbing the other side that doesn't have a choice but get drawn, or they get bored and go to the basement, try something else, and leave the portal open or something halfway. And in other words, they are thinking all except they're thinking about nothing except for the ratings. So we'll have her on at a later date. Chase couldn't make it, but this leads to a story. I get 2 minutes of her time here. I was at a cabin in Pennsylvania along with Chris Bledsoe. And Chris may be joining us here. He hasn't joined us yet, but he may join us for a couple of minutes because he's had some experience with hitchhikers and with shadow people. And I was there with him, and I was there with one of Dale Graff's top remote viewers. And I was also there with the famous Tyler D from American Cosmic. The things that he and I talked about were experiencers. We both believe experiences are very important to watch what the experiencers are saying. And he told me about his very famous, if you read American Cosmic, he talks about his very famous download experience that he had that led to this company that was sold for big money and to a bunch of medical inventions that he's patented. And he told me, he said, Grant, I want to tell you, he said, the last thing I remember the night before I woke up in the morning with that idea in my head was a hooded figure standing at the end of the bed. And I said, could you see its face? And he said, no, I couldn't see its face. So even Tyler D has seen a shadow person. So that's my story from the cabin in Pennsylvania. And then we have Ryan Burns from the edge of Skinwalker Ranch. And he's already told us a bunch of stuff. Matt asked him a bunch of questions. Matt's going to have to ask the questions. Ryan has a wealth of material here. And so he's joining us also from Utah. And have I forgotten anybody here? Matt, come on for a second. Where are you, Matt?
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Yeah. So
Fun guy. I'm Grant's resident book graphic artist designer. Work with Destin Grant.
Yeah. So if you see any of the latest books, Matt the Pond, we call him Matt the Pond Guy. Matt the Pond Guy does that, and he's put out a couple of videos, and but he does a lot of the graphic artist stuff for the books, and does a fantastic job on Desta's books and my books. Most of the stuff that you'll see out of It's All Connected Publishing, Matt does that kind of stuff, and he's here visiting, and he's very excited to talk to Ryan Burns because.
Yeah, I did a video. I did a video on Ryan a few years ago too, talking about Skinwalker Ranch. I got
there you go.
YouTube videos down now. YouTube doesn't like me very much.
So let's go around and with the book that we're looking at. I just want to get everybody's opinion, and I'll sort of try to stay quiet on this. Let's go around and get everybody's opinion on skinwalkers at the Pentagon and the subject of shadow people and hitchhikers, just for a general opening, and then we'll open it up and people can ask each other questions and stuff. Let's start with Melinda.
Okay, I was having an internet problem. You guys heard me okay?
Yeah, you're coming across good.
So this is the book for the viewers out there, obviously, that we're talking about, by James T. Lacasse, Colm Kelleher, and George Knapp. And yeah, no, I've read the book cover to halfway through, but in preparation for tonight, I went to the chapters that I thought were probably most related, like the chapter on the orbs and involvement with those, and the chapter on hitchhikers and that stuff. And now, all in all, the book, and Grant, you could probably realize this, it's very important for research you and I have been doing on the history of the working group, because I've been saying for years that NIDS became BAS and BAS became OSAP and OSAP begot ATIP. And I've been saying that, and I've been saying Colm Kelleher was the director of the whole thing. I've been saying this for years. And then this book comes out and completely confirms that information. And so I think there's so much information here regarding this period of time involving what I call the working group individuals, or as Grant calls them, the cosmic club. So for that reason, I think it's historical data is very, very important. But it's frustrating when it gets into the paranormal stuff, because I think to keep the book so concise, so much was probably left out. And I read those chapters wondering, well, did they do any protection, discernment? Did they ever do prayer? Did they lead the meditation first? Did they ever clear afterwards? Do any of these people ever involve any of those things in their lives? Because I can't see anything in this book that says that they do. Now, I'm not saying they don't. Maybe when they start having stuff manifest in their homes and in their lives and health effects, maybe then they got help. Or maybe then they went on the internet and figured out, oh, I should be using prayer and protection and right use of will and focus of consciousness and clearing and discernment and how to close a portal. Maybe they did, but it's just frustrating looking at the book, because it's like, I think their effort, Grant, I think you already said this earlier, their effort to get funding from the government was to portray it as a threat. I think they played up the threat, and you guys, you get what you ask for when it comes to consciousness. So what they were vibrating is what they got.
Can you give people a little 60-second lesson on what we're talking about in terms of how to start and how to finish? People may not realize this, that we're talking all paranormal phenomena, that there's a protocol. So a lot of people don't know this. They think you just go in and you know.
A lot of it is, where's your consciousness to begin with? You know, what is your attitude going in? And everything with the law of attraction, everything with consciousness is a matching of vibration. So it depends, like, you know, Desta, I know you can speak to this, you're highly qualified too as well. And so it's a match of that vibration. So it's, what is your attitude to begin with? And then, yes, there are rituals around that you can develop that are kind of reminders, you know, like the practices, the rituals that remind you to, this is the process. Now, is it necessary to have a process? No, but rituals are important in that it's formed on belief, and there's structure, and that you make sure you do certain steps. So that's the ritual, is like the reminder of the steps to do. And so, yeah, there are a multitude of methods for protection and discernment. And whenever, you know, you do any kind of paranormal investigation, you're going in, opening yourself up. Even if you're just sitting down with a Ouija board, you know, you're opening yourself up. So I think it's important to do, you know, protection, to go in with the right intent. And you know, and if you want me to get into specifics of rituals, sure. And I'm sure Desta has lots to say about it. But you know, again, so it's what is your focus going in, and again, those rituals are in place just to remind you, and then the belief in it. See, everything is the consciousness, the belief. So if your belief is you're going to get bad stuff, you're going to get bad stuff. If your belief going in is that you are protected and that you have guidance, then you're going to be protected and have guidance. It's all a match of consciousness and energy.
Okay, yeah, let me give an example, because a lot of people will now be saying this is a bunch of woo-woo stuff. This is all crazy nonsense, and we got to be scientific and analytical and stuff. So let me give you an example from the remote viewing program, the government remote viewing program. Lynn Buchanan tells a story. He does a target. He's in Saddam Hussein's head. So the target is Saddam Hussein, and he bilocates. He actually melds with Saddam Hussein. He's in Saddam Hussein's head. And he does this thing, and he goes home from Fort Meade on Friday afternoon, and he's driving home his 2.5-hour ride back from home. And he says, and I'm thinking about to myself, I said, I got to think, okay, what have I got to do this weekend? I got to cut the grass. I got to kill my wife. I've got to wash the car. And then he's going, what the hell am I talking about? That within hours, Saddam Hussein's wife disappeared and was never found. And the rumor was that she was killed. And that's the thing, is when you meld with a target, when you interact, and Buchanan says it's very dangerous. When you get with a target, you have to know a way to get off the target, how to detox, or to break the link and stuff like that. And people think this is woo-woo stuff, but just to back up your thing, the American government was using exactly these protocols. You've got to end the session properly. You've got to delink, especially if you're looking after kids who are being, raped and murdered, killed, stuff like that. You've got to disassociate yourself from that target when it's over.
Absolutely, Grant. The remote viewers did, and in the remote viewers in their books and their classes, I've taken it from one of the military guys, his whole entire week-long class twice. And yes, there's absolutely protection and discernment used. There's absolutely closing the door, like you said in your interviews. By the way, I saw your part 1 and 2 with Matthew. I did see that. So yes, yes, they knew that. And see, these guys now, if we're talking the working group guys and the guys with NIDS, Bass, et cetera, Bigelow, these folks should have known that. They know that from the remote viewing program. So I'm like, even their own group's history of what they know, it's like they weren't putting that to use. They were going in, I think, with OSAP, with the government funding, to see if they could weaponize this. I think it was an attitude going in, and maybe like you said earlier, Grant, it's scientists, it's engineers, it's intelligence guys, it's military guys. Their mindset was not that of a paranormal investigator. They needed a paranormal investigator there, like you said, a psychologist, a parapsychologist. They all are in bed with Dean Radin. Why wasn't Dean Radin involved in this? He would have known. I mean, and exactly. So it's like, and the remote viewer guys, they know. So it's like they went in like they forgot everything they already knew, or they already had at their fingertips. And then also, where was a medium involved? So they needed someone who was a medium. They needed some good. Now I do know, for instance, Bill McDonald's wife, Lori, who is a medium and a psychic and a remote viewer, was used by these guys and hired to do some stuff. Obviously, she wasn't consulting them on all these parts, because again, from what I get looking at the book, if that was done, it was not included in the book.
You're right.
And so I think it wasn't done.
Okay, Ron Johnson, you've done half a century of this kind of stuff, and take us through some of the experiences you've had in terms of EVPs, ghost experiences, UFO experiences, and particularly tell us the one story of the one shadow person that followed you around for 5 years. I think we need to mute Matt or Desta. Can you guys mute
Desta?
I'm getting a feedback here. Okay, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, in my expertise, what I've been doing is ghost hunting, EVPs mainly is what I've been doing. And it's like you say, the people do this, but they don't close the door when they're done. I used to do the oh boy. When I first got into ghost hunting, it was with a friend of mine, Derek Von Hatten, and we would go around and go into old buildings, ghost towns, and places like that. And we would set up night vision cameras and see what we could get. But back then, we used to, when we would go in, before we would do it, I would always say a prayer and ask for white light to protect us. And I'd always close it that way. But as the years went on, I kind of got out of that. And that's when things started following me home. It's like the time I went to the Price Cemetery, and I was by myself. It was about 2:30 in the morning, and I parked myself right in front of a marble mausoleum about in the center of the cemetery. I set up my night vision cameras, and I went up to the door and beat on the door and asked, if you're in there, can you please come out and let me take a picture? Totally the wrong wrong attitude to go about doing this. And so this black shadow started to appear between me and the mausoleum, the door to it. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And I snapped a picture of it. I tried to include it in there, but I cannot find this picture anywhere on my computer. I don't know what happened to it.
Okay.
But I finally give up and just, you know, it made the hackles on my hair. It just didn't feel, stand up, just didn't feel good. So I loaded everything up, went home, and the next night, this shadow, this black mass started to appear in my house, in my home. And this was when I lived in Price. And this was before my mom died in 2009. And so I was putting up with this, trying to get it to go away. I was praying for it to go away, but it never would. It was always showing up, and it would always show up. It was almost like it was playing games with me, because it would always appear like I would come out of the hallway and turn in and walk into the living room, and then it would be boom, right there, right in front of my face, scare the heck out of me. And this went on for up until my mom died, and then I sold the house and I bought another house, and I had it for a little over a year, and it showed up, it followed me there. And now I sold that place, and I've been up here in East Carbon, Utah for about 9 years now. And it has been showing up here, and it still does on occasion. I haven't really gotten rid of it. It's kind of like if you're not careful and you don't close that door, it's like drilling a small 1/8 inch hole through the wall into the next room. You need to close it. If you don't, the next time you go out and do this kind of work, that hole gets bigger. You use a bigger drill bit. I like using analogies.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon, you got the hole gets big enough, and you have things coming through that you don't know what to do with it.
Wow.
And but I've had over the years of doing EVPs, I've had these things show up in my house. I had one once coming back from the Castle Gate Cemetery. As soon as I got done, I left. It was about 2 a.m. in the morning. And I got in the truck, and as soon as I pulled out onto the highway, yeah, there was one starting to appear on the passenger side of my truck. And I stopped, and it just scared the living daylights out of me. But I finally got it to go away, but it never did follow me home, but it did make it into my truck. But these things will, no matter what you say, no matter how much protection you invoke, these things at some point in time will show up in your house, show up while you're out working. And it's just a mathematical certainty.
Beautiful. So we'll show some of your photos. You've taken a lot of photos, and you've got some photos from other people in the area there that are pretty spectacular photos of shadow people. And we'll go through that. I'll go to Ryan now. That's your friend. You know Ryan, and Ryan is right on the edge of Skinwalker. Has done a lot. He's written 2 books on this, I believe, right? Ryan?
Yeah, I read. I've got the Utah UFO Ranch and Shapeshifter Territory, and they're just basically about personal experiences. But it's an area that is raw and rugged, and as you guys know, very active.
Yeah, and so let's go through a little bit of your take on the book. You've read the book. You may even know some of the people in the book. You've interacted because you've You talk about some of these people will stop at your place and stay there. You've had some internal correspondence with some of these people. So what did you think about the book? What did you think about the whole Skinwalker and the hitchhiker stuff? Have you had the hitchhiker and the shadow stuff following you around?
It's one of those things that it has happened, and it is it's one of those things that when you start getting used to it, you know, when you're in proximity of something like that and engaging with these precognitive intelligences that quite literally know what you're thinking before you are thinking it, it's hard to put one up on them, especially when you're interacting for days on end, but or pull one over on them. But you definitely have to have some kind of protection, as has been discussed. And I do have experiences with that type of phenomena, that hitchhiker phenomena, and how it travels, and it's definitely interesting. It can do a lot of things. Here, it'll play with my kids' toys, for example. I've gotten videos of my kids' toys just firing up out of nowhere and starting to run around the yard, and really creepy stuff like that. But it's definitely a phenomena that I think is becoming more widespread and wide known. So that's good.
Wow.
The
one
book has helped
I
with
wanted to
that,
ask
for
you,
sure.
Matt's got 100 questions for you. But the one I wanted to ask you is, you actually had an interaction with Jacques, the Frenchman valet. What did he have to say about this?
Yeah, I had a great visit by Jacques and Frank Salisbury and Junior Hicks came by my home, and we had some amazing discussions. And what came out of it was that these things are more apt and capable of mimicking whatever it is that we can come up with than we are even clear on. So it's really our baggage, luggage. I think somebody has said, like, that dark vibration, whatever it is you encounter, it's actually your own.
Yes.
Yeah. It's your own stuff that is being mimicked, and that ability to magnify it, and then it's interpreted back by the observer. And yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. It's definitely a consciousness conundrum.
Yeah, and so let's go to Desta now, and then because Desta has done a lot of pendulum stuff, a lot of hypnosis stuff, a lot of channeling stuff. Talk a little bit about, I asked you about this the other night, but go through it again for people who may not have heard that. The whole idea about ending a session, about how you have to sort of demerge from your target, or you have to close the thing off, and that this can be a little bit dangerous if you get in and you merge with a target and then you can't get out of it. So go a little bit through the protocols that you've used in your different practices to end a session and stay separate from whatever this phenomena is.
Well, I do lots of, since I was probably 18-ish, I've taken lots of energy healing kind of courses, like Reiki and dowsing and all sorts of different things, crystal work and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of it is, even when I was really young, I was saying on the interview the other day, I learned from my grandma when I was a child about clapping, like loud noises to end sessions, is a good way to kind of dispel spirits. I guess that's what they used to do a long time ago. And so I always have things like bells and bowls and all that kind of stuff, right? The Tibetan bowls or bells that you cling together, because it's a shrill, loud sound that's supposed to disperse them. But from what I learned from my grandma was just clapping 3 times to end a session. The 3 was supposed to mean it was an end. And so at the end of seances, Ouija board sessions, all that kind of stuff, my grandma would always just say, clap loud 3 times. And that just like scares the spirits away so they don't stay with you anymore. So it kind of, you know, scares them away and means it's the end of the session, if that's your intention. Of course. So I was doing that even for the end of Reiki sessions, which I'm sure I didn't learn in the Reiki, but I was just ending it like that. But we still had to end Reiki sessions, you know, by pulling energy off of the top of the people and throwing the energy into the ground, making sure that you're putting the energy into the ground. You're not just spraying it all over the room kind of thing, because it's still even that is still an intention, and it's still a ritual kind of making sure that you're directing energy away from people. So it's not just hovering around negative energy that you're pulling off of people, even in a Reiki session. And for dowsing, we have an end session, like, you have like your yes and no, or I don't know. And then you have an end session, everyone makes it up themselves, but we have an end session. So it's like forcing the session to end. So the pendulum will sometimes tell you that the session is over, because it'll direct the session, say like, don't ask any more questions. It means end the session. But if you feel uncomfortable ever during the session, you're supposed to end the session. So it's another just like protocol or ritual that you're doing, like Melinda was saying, right? It's all just rituals. And that might sound like some woo-woo, new agey kind of thing, or old school black magic kind of thing, because they've been doing rituals obviously for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. That's what all this kind of stuff is. The new protocols are from the old rituals, from like the 1500s, and obviously way before that as well. But everyone was doing rituals, and it's to seal the end of the session, whatever you're doing. They were, John Dee and Edward Kelly, of course, were scrying and doing like stuff on boards, kind of like Ouija board in the 1500s, and they still had protection rituals at the beginning and end of rituals, and making sure that there was no spirits going to be attaching to them at the end. So yeah, and regressions, we do the same thing. Regressions at the end, you have to like keep feeding information to the person, like when you wake up, you are not attached to this past life that we just brought you through. You are two separate beings. It's just like and so even just the talking of that, it's forcing the intention and making sure you're separating what's just happened compared to when you're in this altered state of consciousness. So whether you're doing a healing session, you're kind of in a meditative state of mind, or a CE5 and you're doing a meditation, or a dowsing and you're doing a meditation, or energy healing. All of this kind of stuff is the same thing. You're in this altered state of consciousness, and when you're there, the whole point of being there is because the veil is thin and you can see these other things. So you need to protect yourself at the beginning before you're going to meet the spirits or the whatever, the ETs,
Absolutely.
or whatever you want to say. And at the end, you have to say, now go away, because now I want to be back to being Desta, because I have to carry on with my normal 3D life. So you have to separate. It's a separation, and you definitely have to do that from anything that I've ever been trained in any kind of energy healing or any stuff like this.
Absolutely. That was one of the other psychics at the Center for New Age, where I'm in my office. I had my door open, so people were poking their head in to say hi. But exactly, some of the people here will set a protection at the beginning of the day before they do readings, and then a clearing at the end. I'm of the belief, and everyone can do it a little differently, but before every reading, will do a protection, and an invocation, invite spirit in. And then when I'm done with a reading, I close it down. Like you were just saying, Desta, I say, I thank spirit for their help and any specific information they were given. And then, and usually close it with a final statement, kind of affirmation for my client based upon what came through. But then I always say, I want to thank my guides and their guides for all the information, and do a closing. Occasionally I'll get talking to a client, maybe they'll leave and I didn't do the closing, in which case I've gone and sat in my car or gone back in my office and done it. So at least I feel like I closed down the opening of the channel. That way the stuff doesn't bother me all the time. In all the ghost investigations that I've done, and paranormal investigations, our team always did a protection before we went into the environment, before we approached. And we did the Queen Mary many times. We would do it in the parking lot before going. And if we're getting there at different times, I'd arrive, and if the guys were there ahead of me, I'd say, did you already do something? And yeah, I do it in the parking lot before I enter. But and also with people's homes and whatnot, again, we would do it before entering, whatever the facility is. If it's a graveyard, we would do it before entering. And sometimes the guys got so good at getting trained that if they got there before me, and other women too, but the other team members, they would do it before as well. And then again, when you're leaving, when you close down a ring, when you close down a paranormal investigation, you want to disconnect. A lot of people call it uncording, unplug the cords, let them, go away from you. I had said to Grant in preparation for this, and in all the investigations, we never had hitchhikers, but there was minor things. I thought about it again later. Yes, we never had full-on hitchhiker. We never had shadow people showing up, but minor things. And usually it was like, often if one of us had that happen, it was like, wow, maybe we left the investigation and we didn't really close, or we didn't do that. All the times we did that, with full intent, we never had anything happen. So only when we let our guard down or we're sloppy. But again, it's the consciousness, it's the matching of the consciousness. I mean, I know this sounds woo to people, but you guys, this is how it works. Don't think of it as woo, think of it all as it's energy, and you're connecting and you're opening up to that energy, to that consciousness. Like Dessa just said, you're often getting in an altered state of mind, a meditative state, a fugue state, a trance state. But then when you're done, you need to close that down because you want to be grounded, go back to life. You certainly, like after our investigations, we make sure we always close before we get in the car, because you don't want to go drive like that, you know. And that's why they say you don't want to do channeling really while driving, or any paranormal stuff while driving, because your focus needs to be on the driving for safety, you know. And so yeah, you know, and again, looking at the book, I don't see, at least in the book, evidence that they were really, you know, doing that. And
Let me throw.
sometimes what you're doing can raise the vibration. I'm also an abductee. I think most of you here know that. There was one time at the beginning of an abduction where I did a bunch of prayer work, and at the beginning, thinking I was maybe stopping it or altering it, and the abduction happened. And in the abduction, I later said, I did all this prayer work. Why did that happen? And ET literally said, you raised your vibration. It actually made it easier because you raised your vibration. And I saw it as, okay, it's a match of vibration. It's not, and it wasn't like I really intended in the prayer to not have it happen. I was doing a prayer of protection, and yet the abduction happened. And that was also getting over my assumption that therefore, because it was an abduction, it was something bad, when it wasn't. And in fact, that was a very educational thing. And I remembered a lot of it consciously, probably because I did that prayer work. So that's why, again, like Desta mentioned, the CE5 stuff, that's why they do the meditation, the work beforehand, is because you're then setting the stage, setting the intent for what kind of experience is going to unfold after that.
Yeah. One point on what Des had said, when she was talking about this clap 3 times, I'm a big fan of Paul Salick. That people know I watch all this stuff. And I just realized that when they are finished talking, the guides, they always say period, period, period. And that's how they stop it. And so let me just ask one question. I'm going to turn it over to Matt, because Matt's got 101 questions. He wants to interrogate some people here. And but let me ask this question about George Knapp had said at one point, those that were the most aggressive to the phenomena had the worst experiences. Brandon Fugel said there's a reflective phenomena, that those that engaged the phenomena had these bad sort of experiences. Have you found in your research that there's this reflective thing, that whatever, as Bashar would say, whatever you put out comes back?
Sure, absolutely. You know, absolutely. And the intent, like I said, going in, whether I'm teaching a psychokinesis spoon bending class, or doing a reading, or doing a ghost or paranormal investigation, or even a UFO sighting tour, the intent of me and my clients has everything to do with the outcome of the event. I mean, you know, Grant, I'm preaching the choir, telling these folks, and certainly saying this to you. You know, I keep saying, oh, it's consciousness. Well, that's because Spirit keeps teaching me there's really actually no physical world. It's all consciousness. This is just the 3rd dimension of consciousness. So everything is consciousness. Everything is this one energy. And you change your thinking, you change your reality. Well, same with any paranormal event. Your thinking going into it changes the reality of the event. And you know, like nights, even on my tours, when people are really positive, it's not like, oh, I'm going to have a sighting, damn it, or I always have sightings. No, that's ego. If they go in saying, look, I'm just here to have a good time, I'm going to be really nice to everybody, I'm going to have a good time, those are the best evenings with the best sightings. You know,
and you get the Mission Rama thing, as you point out, the CE5, they don't get these sort of negative things. And the Mission Rama don't get any negative stuff,
Yeah.
but they're doing a lot of this oming and meditation and prayer and all
I've
this
done
stuff.
1,453 tours. I've never had anything negative happen with my tours ever. And my clients have never reported anything negative afterwards, ever. What they do report is after going out with me, they start having bunches of sightings because it's opened them up. So that's what we're also talking about here. You open yourself up to stuff, but if you had positive stuff happen, a positive thing, yes, you are opening yourself up. You're going to have more paranormal stuff, but it'll probably be very positive in nature. If you're opening up yourself to negative and you go in with a negative or fear-based belief system, you're probably going to create negative fear-based stuff. It's just, it sounds so simple, but you guys, it is that simple. It's just the vibration matching the vibration. And, you know, Grant, I want to ask you, you said something about, I wish Chase was here with us. And I even texted her a little while ago, trying to encourage her to be here with us. Chase Koletsky said something to you about they were using technologies and those technologies were increasing negative vibrations or something. What, can you bring that up again?
Well, it's hard to explain. She'd have to explain it. I was never aware of this. I think we should probably leave that, because if we brought her on, then she'd be able to, because she seems to know, because you know, she worked for the military. Her husband was a big guy at the Pentagon and stuff. So she may have some insights on technology stuff that they were using. But that goes back to the same thing. They're relying on technology. They're relying on brute force, because the guys that had the bad experiences, as George pointed out, were the gun-toting guys who, you know, ex-military guys who thought they were in control. And that comes the same thing with near-death experiences and stuff like that. That people have the bad near-death experiences are the people that are trying to control the situation, where it's the old thing, what you put in comes out, or, you know, what you sow, you reap, you know, what goes around comes around. It's this reflective idea that we think it's independent of us. And when you get involved with it, you realize that as the remote viewing guys, when you merge with a target, you become that target, and it starts to come across with you, and you can start pick up all this evil stuff or positive stuff. That you have to realize that it's all one thing, that you can, there is no separation. And that's why when Buchanan says, when he's actually talking to somebody like a foreign leader or something, he stays like 6 feet away. He does not actually engage with the person. He stays, so he doesn't get merged together with the person that he's trying to you know, read their mind or whatever, stuff like that. We have to realize there's this reflective thing. Ron and Ryan, have you had this? What do you think about this whole reflective nature about? Because Ron, you've had the experiences where, you know, they're painting this as evil. You had the being actually take you to the spirit world. So I mean, you can have one end of the spectrum, and you've had the other end of the spectrum. What do you say to this reflective thing, that whatever you put in will come back?
I believe it. Whatever you put in does come back. I've had experiences where I've gone out to do EVP sessions in a very bad mood. Something had put me in a bad mood on the way. Somebody cut me off. I get there and I'm real blunt. I'm almost antagonistic with my questions that I ask. And I get the same response back from these spirits that I talk to in my EVPs. I had one, I went to the old railroad depot here in East Carbon. I was in a bad mood. I shouldn't even have been out that day. Didn't even give a prayer. I just went in there, started asking some pretty blunt questions, and I was told to F off.
Yeah.
And it took, I felt bad.
One thing, let me ask you a related question.
Ron, I've done the same thing. I've done the same thing. Had a bad attitude and was told, you know, F off or get out, or all those kind of EVPs. I've achieved those too when I wasn't asking politely. You better believe it.
I want to go to Ryan, but I want to ask a follow-up. Let me ask a follow-up to Ryan. I want to go to Ryan, but and ask the same question. But you mentioned this thing about the bad mood. I was listening to Lynn Buchanan a lot in the last couple of days, and he was famous for the telekinesis stuff. And you mentioned that you had problems with your computer, and he talked about, he said, when he's in a bad mood, the computer hasn't got a chance. Have you found this effect that your mood will affect because he even said, I think it was, he said the printer will last 3 seconds. If he's in a bad mood, the printer is down in 3 seconds. And this idea that you what you put out is coming back. Because I remember you telling me a lot that you had changed the computer and you're all upset, and then you couldn't type a sentence, and it would all, you were having a lot of computer problems. And I remember they told me with Stan Romanek, they heard I was going to go see Stan Romanek, and they only gave me one warning: don't let him touch your computer.
That happens.
Yeah.
That happens.
Okay, Ryan, what do you got to say about all this?
I think that, yeah, something comes from us, is magnified by whatever this physical research is showing, and it can be thrown back at us in a way to interact. And I think that's all it is an interaction. It's us that can take it to the confrontational levels. And I think that communication of being more friendly with it than unfriendly or is vital and important.
Yeah, let me a related question, then I'll turn it to finally give it to Matt. A related question: if you saw the interview between Bigelow and George Knapp, and he basically said we didn't have any injuries. You get the special forces guys go on there, and suddenly you get all this stuff going on. Bigelow basically said we really didn't have any injuries. But the one thing he did say important, remember when George said, he said, so what was it all about? And he said immediately, messaging. It's all about gaming and messaging. Is that your person? Because you just mentioned this thing about lessons and sort of talking to us. Do you have that idea that this thing is trying to interact with us or indirectly give us messages or teach us things?
It's definitely looking for fascinating insight as to what makes us tick. I believe it's looking for a whole new truth that we are probably unaware of, looking for, at least in some of my experiences, some of these entities are looking for these highs and lows in your life, that energy, somewhat archonic at times, but it's a spiritual phenomena. And I think it's a spiritual tap on the shoulder a lot of times, what we were talking about, however dark this introduction is between the spiritual energy barrier of these precognitive intelligences and ourselves, is a lot of the baggage is us showing up at the party with this baggage and not necessarily them.
Okay,
I
Matt,
I agree completely.
Matt, you're up. You got a lot of questions you want to ask?
Yeah, actually, I forgot all the questions, Grant. I don't know
And then the meeting's over.
No, I'm just kidding. Ryan, you spoke about the Collins Elite before in a previous interview. Can you explain what the Collins Elite are briefly? And if you think they have been to Skinwalker Ranch or how they might relate?
Sure. It is basically individuals that have, for whatever reason, purportedly taken this phenomena that we're generally talking about and lumped it into the demonic category. And once you're able to do that, it's a lot easier to bust out the pitchforks and the torches and gather money in some cases for black budget projects. Now, whatever that is, I'm not into that political world and the battles that take place there. But there is in operation those of the mindset that these things are demonic, and it's difficult because semantics is where this all falls apart, is when people start saying, well, is it or is it not this? And is it or is it not that? There's so many shades of gray, no pun intended, but once the semantics get involved and it's classified one thing and not the other, it's it kind of extinguishes the search for truth.
I have to ask a question before you continue, Matt, because you brought up before, in behind you, Ryan, is the Tubular Bells. What's your interpretation? Because I said that when I saw that was the music for The Exorcist, and then I could just see Lacasse going back to the Pentagon and telling some religious guy that he saw this symbol and we want $22 million to go and investigate. I mean, I can say, like, wow, I could just see where this guy would actually believe that this was. What do you take with this symbol of the Tubular Bells? Because you got it up there, so you must have thought about it. What's that all about?
I believe that the phenomena is, and I'll just call it, it has the ability to be, at least from a spiritual ability, to be a few steps ahead of the average individual. So it is somewhat of a trickster, and it will look for these connections like tubular bells, and maybe only later Lacasse realized what that signified. But at the time, he was just looking at tubular bells and things like that, with an entity that's able to dabble with space and time the way it is. And this is whether or not it's, a quote unquote skinwalker, a person wearing an animal's skin who's tapped into that and who comes out at night and through their spiritual ability and power is able to mimic the abilities of whatever they are interacting with. It is still the same thing that we're trusting in. This barrier is lighter in certain areas, and these portal like abilities to interact on levels and planes and dimensions that are not usually averagely encountered is more possible. And so the phenomena, for example, this property that I purchased that overlooks one very important artery that we're talking about, this area, I came to find out afterwards, about 2 years afterwards, that it is a location that I had been trying to find for years, the actual location of where previous researchers had done a huge ritual and had a very spectacular situation take place. It was Rich Oliver, April Slaughter, a gentleman named Matt, and a few others. And they had done a blood ritual, and they were right there in the epicenter of activity. And of course, what was presented from the phenomena to them as observers was extreme. And it was, in my opinion, one of the most remarkable stories that had ever taken place in the general area. And only later did I find out it happened right. It's this trickster mentality that this thing has to apply to our reality and basically shove it in wherever it can and create the circle or the connection. But it will synchronistically hook you up with things that is impossible. If I could go into the synchronicities, they are impossible. For example, my remote viewing instructor, who happened to turn out to be the original Nevada remote viewing, the person in charge of taking the team into the Bigelow Ranch, hired by Bigelow from a remote viewing standpoint, is now going to be renting from my mom. And then there's all kinds of connections through my wife's work to Bigelow, and all these strange connections to people involved. For example, George Knapp. I met the guy that I sold half the property to do some research. I met through Jeremy Corbell. And it's just strange because it's not timely introduction. It just happens. It just
Well,
boom, happens.
That's true with anyone studying, Ryan, the law of attraction stuff. What you're vibrating is what you get, and the synchronicities line up. Like, you just meet the right people at the right time, the right situations. The universe, the energy lines up when you're in sync with it. So you're in sync with this story, this subject, so those things related to it are lining up with you. That's, to someone like me, no surprise. I mean, I give people readings every day about this very stuff. So whatever you're creating, and that means you're manifesting, because things start happening, the dominoes fall, one thing after another. You meet the right person, someone knows somebody, it all comes out. The car, you can't afford it, but somebody gives it to you. Everything starts happening when you're in alignment with the flow. So that's what's going on with you for sure. Yay, by the way.
Yeah, it is. It's very strange. And the more you let go, the more it has free realm of basically, yeah. And it's a good point, because the interaction, in a way, is that a hitchhiker type scenario as well? Like, when you cease to see magic in your life of that capability, do you start, because I know that a lot of people have talked about the area and said they go back to get their batteries charged. And I totally understand that it has the intensity that it can heal the body in ways. It's not always malevolent. And, just being in proximity sometimes is all you need.
Another question, Ryan. Do guys at Skinwalker Ranch employ psychics as psychic bodyguards? I heard you mention this kind of before. Can you elaborate on that?
I can only elaborate on what I knew before. I can't talk about what's currently taking place, but it is definitely an area that, yes, there has been concern in the past for psychic attacks, and these psychic attacks could be these entities that are seen at night that present spiritual abilities that seem to be oriented with things that are not human. Humans aren't typically able to do these things. So
what are non-corporeal plasma entities? I heard you say that, and I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Who told him that? Who's he talking to about that? Non-corporeal plasma entities.
It's an intelligently controlled biological entity that is non-corporeal in the sense that it doesn't look necessarily like anything in general. It is more like an orb or
Right.
a gelatinous, somewhat illuminated substance that seems to be quite literally, I mean, I don't know what you can call this biological, physical entity that is precognitive, seems intelligently controlled, and quite literally is from the spirit world, I guess, because it seems like it could be an ancient technology, but at the same time, it just seems like raw consciousness roaming the landscape.
What are biochemical portals, and who are the people that may be able to open them? Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. And this has been, when I originally mentioned this, there was not a lot of study involved with, the possibility and characterizations of experiencers and how their experiences seem to compound on one another, and their quote unquote antennas become more able to present these experiences. And it's been spectacular that, I believe Harvard and some other very prestigious universities have gone down this pathway and are showing that parts of the brain are lighting up that have to do with this ability to I guess, be a biological sensor of sorts and be aware of when these things are in proximity. And there's some spiritual and evolutionary clues in there, but it definitely seems to be something that can be, it's not just hardwired, it's something that can be manifested in an individual, and then it can continue. But the biochemical portal, to not go too deep down that other rabbit hole, the biochemical portal is basically putting yourself in a state, whether that is through an altered state, whether that is through breath work or meditation or other sorts of ways of intriguing the body into this connection with these entities. And when this happens, the area around the experiencer seems to also be involved. So other things can be found, gifts, items, things that weren't there before. And it's very, I don't know, I don't scare easily, but it's very intriguing at what can come through these quote unquote portal areas, or these biochemical portals, when you're able to basically make a connection. And that's pretty much it.
I'm just picturing Brandon Fugel and these guys at Skinwalker Ranch and bringing people on. They got pentagrams laid out and candles and stuff. And man, it's great. So have you talked to some of these guys about this? Have you actually had these conversations?
That's actually smart, Matthew, that they're doing that. I mean, it sounds hokey, but they're doing the same ritual stuff that Dustin and I were talking about, that they're involving that now. And it gives them greater control over what's going on there, because they are implementing ritual. They're setting intent. They're doing it as a group. They're creating a group energy and an intent. It sounds like, if they're in fact doing those things that you just mentioned, those are just forms of ritual, but if you do them, you have the intent, you have the belief in them, you do them, hence the term religiously, repetitively, that gives it power too. Like Ryan was just saying, the repetition of these things builds an energy. And yes, it also changes you physiologically. You can produce states of healing, as well as obviously from the book and other incidences, you can also produce states of illness. It can produce both, but because everything is part of this energy. So the physical world or your physical body is just an equal part of that. And that's why it's also important when people do paranormal work that you keep yourself clean, alcohol, drug-free, eating good food, organic food. The more you can raise your personal body's vibration and the energy of your body and its vibratory level, you're going to be a better vibratory antenna or tuning fork. And Ryan was talking about the portions of the brain, and those scientific studies called it the caudate putamen, which is the caudate part of the brain. The putamen part of the brain have these filaments between them, and in individuals who have advanced psi abilities, there's more of those fibers. That's what they're finding in the MRIs of the brain, that those people have more of those and that they light up more. So there's a stronger connection between those areas of the brain in those people.
That was Gary Nolan's work, right?
Gary Nolan, that's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
Can I pop in with a question? Do we know that they're actually doing this kind of stuff? Because as far as I know, all I heard was that Brandon Fugel said that he tries to set, but he's talking about himself. I try to set the intention when I come in on the helicopter. I say a prayer as I'm coming in to protect people. So he's a religious guy, so I can see he's doing it. Are these other guys? Because when I watch the History Channel thing, it's like, it says we shouldn't drill. We shouldn't dig a hole. Let's dig a big hole and see if someone gets killed. I mean, they seem to be still on this real materialistic view of things. Are they actually doing this protection thing, or is this just something that we're hoping that they're doing? Because the book doesn't appear that way. The book appears like this is just a bad phenomena, and these poor guys went on there and they followed them home, and it went after their kids and all this kind of stuff. And then they gave this briefing to Homeland Security and scared the living daylights out of the guy at Homeland Security. And then that same night, the kid got bombarded and something happened at Skinwalker Ranch, and there was this reflective quality and stuff. And they don't seem to indicate any sort of reflective thing.
Some recent, which I think you saw, Grant, some recent Twitter conversations with Brandon Fugel. He says, yeah, we were doing protection stuff and we never had, there was that whole thing with Joe Merge's comments, and then Brandon Fugel joined in, and then Chase and I were also joining in on this. And he was saying, we don't have the hitchhiker phenomena. We're not taking stuff home because we're doing the protection. But again, Grant, I thought what Matthew was saying was that they were doing these things. I don't know, because I don't watch the show and I don't know if they're doing those things or not. Obviously, like you said, Brandon Fugel has said that he's intending that. If
So
he's intending that, or is he involving the other people, Ryan or Matthew? Do you know if he's actually doing other protection rituals?
Go ahead, Ryan.
I don't know what exactly he's doing. I can't speak to that.
Okay.
Because to me, it sounds like they're coming across like we're scientists. We don't get into this stuff. We want to measure. We want to, it's got to be duplicatable and all this. They go through that whole routine again. And I know, like he does it. And then I also quoted with Tyler D. If you read it was Diane Pasolka did an interview, and she says when Tyler D. took her and Nolan to the gifting site, Tyler D. started to pray. And she said she was shocked. She went along with it. I went along with it. And then he built an altar on the site where they were picking up this material on the gifting site and behind this locked fence in New Mexico. And she said every time he goes there, he builds an altar. And there was altars all over this site where this crash material was they believe was gifted to them. So you see them doing the protection stuff, and you see. But I'm glad you've got some contact with Brandon Fugel where he's answering these questions, because that's something. I trust Brandon Fugel. He seems like a level-headed guy. He's got, a spiritual background. He understands there may be more than just, some materialistic thing going on here. So I'm glad you've got some contact with them, and we can sort of pose these questions to them about what do they really know about really what's going on.
Yeah, that UFO Twitter group of people, he definitely comments occasionally in there, and you know, yeah, he's definitely writing some comments there, no doubt.
Okay, good.
Ryan, I got another question for you. You say you don't scare very easily, but have you seen anything in that area that has kind of freaked you out? Anything really crazy? Anything that stands out?
Tons and tons of things that make you really, the hammer has drilled the nail so deep into my core that it is all real, that even if I never saw anything again, it's enough that I don't need to fabricate anything. It's very amazing watching this technology, if it is a spiritual technology at work, because what it's able to do is just fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Anything that you can relay, or anything that stands out? Any really cool stories you want to share?
Yeah, examples.
Sure. One of my favorite examples is what seemed like nanoparticulates, almost like nanoparticles, small, almost like a small drone swarm or amorphous. You know, you hear of the djinn with the smokeless fire, and I was with another researcher, and we saw this spiraling of these materials, this dark mass of what you would typically think of a shadow person looking like. And it was swirling, and it became a canine. I mean, within just feet of us. And it walked a few steps and then de-manifested into something else. And
Cool.
yeah, from a solid base of reality to be that close to another researcher and witness this in front of you is just like, it's literally taking those peripheral reality strings away from you as a researcher. And it's even if you don't scare easily, it's impressive, the amount of knowledge present for this entity or intelligence to do these things.
One last question.
Absolutely.
I guess I'll let everybody else get into this. What did you talk to Jacques Vallée about? Can you elaborate on that? What are some of the more interesting things that he might have been looking into down there? And you know, what did you talk to him about?
Some of the stuff is, was personal and but other things we spoke about, basically the generalities in many of these cases worldwide, and how as human beings, we are the ones that usually stop the research when we can no longer handle the truth. So when it won't fit into our box, so it's not an angel and it's not a demon, so we must kill it, or it when it doesn't fit in our boxes, we put the blinders on. And I think Jacques was just pointing out how in a lot of cases you want to look for the similarities and not the differences. And when you look for the similarities, you gain a lot more knowledge as to how this is actually working.
Very smart. Very smart.
Ron, I heard you got some really neat pictures. Ryan, I don't know if you have any pictures you want to share, but I'd love you guys to share those and screen share those if you can, or Grant can show them.
Okay.
Some cool pictures.
I've got, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we got it up.
Okay. I'll just go through, and Ron will talk in the background here. I've got a couple of slides before. As I said, this thing goes across the spectrum. That Tyler D said he had a shadow figure, and he has 40 patents. He sold this company for big time money for the first invention. This is all medical inventions. He's very positive about what he thinks the phenomena is and stuff like that. And you can see here, remote viewer Lynn Buchanan said, shadow people. Yeah, many of our classes, we would have shadow people show up. So this is not something that it always I think I'm trying to get people to think other than Skinwalker Ranch, because people are going to get the impression, if you want shadow people, got to go to Skinwalker Ranch. This happens in all paranormal phenomena. It's all over the place.
That's right.
And so here's some of the photos. And here's one that Nicole gave me here, shadow people. This one's good. I like this one. And it's your attitude. Whatever you think is going on is going on. So we, now this is Ron. So Ron, talk me through this. I've got a close-up of this, but this is one of your shadow people photos.
Yeah, this is one, we did a ghost hunt. This was way back in, I think, 2011. It was in Helper, Utah. And this is at what used to be called the Square Deal store. And inside the building, there's a veranda that goes all the way around. And I had the investigator, her, walk around, and then I would just take a series of pictures as she walked around. And this showed up in one picture. You can see it in front of her. It's like it's mimicking her.
Yeah. So this is right?
And one thing I've noticed that shadow people come in various shapes, sizes, and types. This one is well defined. This is almost identical to the ones that I've encountered when I've had my OBEs and when I'd practiced my out-of-body astral projecting at home. I would have them sometimes as soon as I would leave my body and get out of it, or halfway out of it, a shadow person would show up.
Okay, so when you got a lot of out-of-body experiences connected to your UFO stuff, so you're saying that shadow people appear in the out-of-body state as well? Do they interact with you? Are you able to talk to them?
I haven't been able to talk to them. They show up as soon as I leave the body while I'm in the house, and it scares me, and it makes me go back into my body and wake up. But I had one time, I got out of my body. I was laying on the floor and listening to some music, and I left my body, and as soon as I stood up, this black shadow person, it was very well defined, like this one. It was right next to me, scared the living daylights out of me. And I went right back into my body and jumped up, but the shadow person was still there. And this darn thing actually came towards me, passed through me, and out the other side of me. And that's the only time I've ever had one do that. And I tell you, the feeling of, it was weird. The feeling of dread, the feeling of total aloneness, and a separation from the divine was just so overwhelming and overpowering on that experience. But they appear in complete body form, like this one, partial body form. They come in, they're not just black. I've seen them in brown, I've seen them in gray, and shades in between.
Now, in the Skinwalker book, they talk about these three guys going down the road, and they run into the temperature drops 20 degrees. They feel this feeling of dread. They back away. The temperature goes back up again. Then they see this black form in the middle of the road, 8 feet high, and they step forward again, and the temperature drops. Have you had that kind of experience, like with the ghost phenomena, or EVP, where you run into this sort of a cold zone or something? You always hear this in ghost material. Have you had that?
Yeah, I've had it happen in investigations.
Yeah. So it's almost like when I saw that, then I said, oh, come on, this sounds like a ghost experience. I mean, they're turning it into something, whatever they want into, but it seems like a very phenomena goes across the board.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think shadow people are probably, Ron, you can jump in on what you think here, and maybe Desta wants to too, but I think shadow people are just spirit, and they're, whether absorbing all light into them or sucking the energy out of a space to manifest. So it could be it's a void because they're taking that energy to manifest, or pulling in all light you know, and that's why you get the cold. In ghost hunting, we generally believe the cold is because they're requiring so much energy to make their presence known or to manifest. So often when we get really good EVP, we're getting the cold, or we're walking into an area where we're feeling a strong energy or a presence there, or one of the medium picks up on someone there, and often that's accompanied by that feeling of cold. I think it's just that they're absorbing the energy in the environment in order to be able to manifest and come through in some way, whether it's EVP or whether it's a physical, you know, manifestation presence. At least I think that's the theory, and I think it makes sense.
And the other thing you get is you get the UFOs now, you get the triangles. It's like it's completely pitch dark, and you can see the stars are blocked out. It's that same sort of impression where.
Well, on my tour, anytime we've gotten anything not lit up, it's a dark silhouette. So
Yeah.
it just means it's doesn't have the plasma field effect intensely right then, that you're just getting something not producing any
Yeah.
light, whether that's producing a plasma that I've learned that from taking physicists and plasma physicists many times on my tour, that they say it's got such a strong energy field, it's ionizing the air around that ionization is electrical plasma, and that probably when you're seeing lighting on UFOs, it's not actually lighting. It makes sense if it's interdimensional, interplanetary, interstellar, that it wouldn't have lighting on it, that what you're actually seeing is a field effect from various energy sources going on. And so that's why the most common color report, it's literally like 80% of all sightings reported are amber light, because in a lab environment, the way they know they've achieved electrical plasma or ionization of the air is they get amber light. So that's the first thing you get. And then as Hal Puthoff often is fond of saying, blue shift, you get amber, so that's gold, orange, red. And then with a lot more power, it gets a different frequency of plasma, is my understanding. That's when you get the blue. And then a lot more power after that, you get yet another frequency of plasma, and that's when you get the green. So I think it makes sense based upon, again, I've learned that from plasma physicists going on my tour, that you're seeing a plasma field effect. So like when you get the blue orbs, that suggests something is emanating a lot of plasma, you know, to get that color, you know, that it's emanating a lot of energy, and it's causing, in other words, a really strong ionization of the air. Whether that's around something or contained within it or both, I don't know, you know, but every time someone reports colors, I think of this, and I think of what we experienced on the tours. But going back to, like, whenever we've seen triangles on my tours, which we have 9 times, only one of those was completely silhouetted, no lighting on it. The rest, either the whole thing glowed, or it was maybe predominantly silhouetted but had a light in each corner. So we either saw a light in each corner or one light in the middle. One time we had just one light in the middle of the triangle. One time we had the front point glowing and the back end glowing, but the rest of it was silhouetted. So again, every time I think we're seeing an energy source ionizing the air, and it just happens to be whatever that is the source of the energy or the source of the propulsion is probably causing that. I think it's reasonable, and I think there's a logic there. And so, but again, dark, as far as the triangle, I think it's just a matter of it's just some dark object. Like, you know, you go out at night, you look up your hand's going to be silhouetted, you know. But in the case of these paranormal things, in like what Ron just showed in that picture of walking in front of the other lady on that walkway, it may have been absorbing the light into it, that it's trying to manifest, and it's taking light in order to be able to manifest. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there
technical
as a theory.
Okay, Ron, what is this?
Okay, this is up Spring Canyon, just west of Utah, or Helper, Utah. There's an old ghost town up there. It's called Spring Canyon City.
Okay.
And this is the old shop building. And a friend of mine was up there messing around, kind of an amateur ghost hunter, and was telling me he was seeing black shadow people around. So I started going up there, and I took one of my friends with me, And this is on the third night of going up there. We didn't see nothing. We couldn't get anything. I took thousands of pictures and didn't get nothing. And he suggested, why don't you try doing a Zach Bagans impersonation? Get mad at it. So I did. I stood in front of the building, and back in them days, I was dumb. I would never do that now. And I stood there and I cursed this thing, everything I could think of. And I just stuck my camera up, took a picture, and then I got these 2 streaks of red lights. And it made the hackles raise on my, the back of my neck. I didn't like it. So I went home that night. After that, I just loaded everything up and went home. And I just had the worst feeling of my life. So I drove back up there and apologized to it.
Good for you.
About a half an hour. And I made a vow to it that I would never, ever get mad, while conducting a ghost hunt or doing an EVP session. Because these things,
Ron, I love you that you went back and apologized to it. Is so awesome.
yeah.
I tell people, if we're
I'm
talking
sorry.
ghosts, if we're talking the deceased, they're people just without bodies. And so would you be really rude to people, and especially if you're going into their home, their environment where they live or they hang out? Most of us would say, oh, can I please enter? Can I talk to you? Would you like to go have coffee, with people we know? Why, when going into where spirit lives, would you not treat them like other people? And I love that you went back and apologizing. That's so awesome.
Correct.
Okay, this is a wild one, Ron. Explain this one.
Okay, this one is up Spring Canyon again. It's in the same area that the other picture was taken. There's a bicycle trail, a little paved bicycle trail that goes about 5 miles up the canyon. And at the end of it, the county went and built this latrine, and they stuck it right in the center of an old house foundation. And my former partner, Kevin, that he's deceased now, I was talking to him about this location, and pretty much you can get EVPs anywhere. You can even get them sitting in your car in front of a place. And I said, this might be a good location, because there might be some spirits that don't like the idea of this latrine sitting in the middle of their living room. And so we would take turns going in by ourselves into this bathroom and conduct EVP sessions. And the only problem is it's real echoey.
Yeah.
You have to talk real light, or you just get a bunch of echoey noise. And so the one time we both went in there, when we took it and took this picture, we were conducting an EVP session, and we got some really good EVPs out of there. I did a YouTube video on it, on my YouTube channel. And this picture kind of looks like a hand.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you lighten it up, it looks like it's coming straight, down on about a 45-degree angle. And the bottom of this window is like 9 feet high in this latrine. And there's no way that we could have, either one of us could have stuck our hand up there and to do this. But it's an interesting story associated with it.
Okay, this one.
Yeah, it does look like a hand in motion, for sure.
Yeah. And this one is an apartment house we did up in Salt Lake. And a lot of people are going to say lens flare. We did a whole series of pictures in the, in the same location. And this is the only one that come out like it.
Wow.
Mhm.
Well, was there a background to this place?
A what?
A background to this place, why you were there?
Oh, yeah, there was the owners of the property, or not the owners of the property, but the people that rented the apartment that we were in was having problems with their children seeing apparitions at night when they would go to bed, and then things moving by themselves, cupboard doors opening, the typical
Yeah.
ghost stuff.
Wow.
As I'm sitting here in my office, Grant, I realized I was thinking, gosh, I don't really have pictures from our investigations, other than we have some orb stuff, but I don't have that here with me. But I'm sitting here in my office, and on this map behind me, which is right here, so I can kind of turn it so people can see a map of sightings in the area. But I have these two pictures from the Jerome Grand Hotel, and Jerome here is just half an hour away drive, and it's very, very famous for having really haunted locations. And from the Jerome Hotel, there's this shadow being in a hallway picture, and a orb moving that was moving so fast it's a streak of light coming around a corner from like one hallway to another. And anyways, but
Okay,
I
we'll
could,
show that once we've gone through Ron's pictures. Well,
yeah,
I'm
well,
sharing
the only
screen,
way
we
I think
can't-
I'd be able to show them is just hold them up to the camera, but that'd probably
Okay.
work. But I did just, I did not take these, unfortunately, but these are
Okay.
taken by other people, obviously.
Okay, we'll get to those once we run through his photos. What's this one, Ron?
Okay, this one, a friend of mine in Arizona, northern Arizona, his next door neighbor was having problems with a spirit that kept showing up. Apparitions, white shadows moving along the walls at night, and stuff like that. And he went over and tried to help him get rid of it. And it appeared in his house right after that.
Oh,
And he took this picture and sent it to me.
wow.
And I told him you probably just made it move next door to your house.
Is it still with him? Do you know?
Far as I know, he got rid of it. He's been
Okay.
doing cleansings and
Yeah.
a lot of prayers and stuff like that. I haven't heard any more from him about it, so he
Okay.
must have gotten rid of it.
This one here.
But he said it's never had a bad feeling with it.
Yeah.
Okay, this one is okay. The guy in the pool is my he's my ex nephew-in-law.
Okay.
And this was his father had died earlier that morning.
Wow.
And this building right here was his shop, where that he spent most of his time in. And you can see the ectoplasm coming out of the corner of the building, going
Yeah.
up, and then if you look real close, it cuts across and it goes right down into his head.
Oh, you're right.
Right about there. And
Touching
I
his head,
believe
yeah.
it's just another form of manifestation. These spirits can manifest in many different ways, from shadow people to orbs, to streaks of light.
Yeah.
There's
like
so many ways they can.
Is there an orb in the middle of there above that the little shed?
There is, right here. Yeah, right above the shed. Yeah. Yeah, in the
Interesting.
original picture I got, you can actually see it a little better.
And bottom
This one-
left, just above the edge of the pool on the left, there,
Yeah.
center of the
Yeah,
picture,
and there's-
left. Yeah, the little orb.
Right there. Yeah, there's another one over there too. I was going to mention that. And this one is another ectoplasm manifestation. And this is at up let's see, it's about 5 miles north of where I live. There's an old asphalt mine up there. And these were, they had the mine was up in the mountains, and they had these structures with pulleys on them that the ore cars would come down, kind of like a gondola. And from what I understand, I don't know how true it is, that there was a person killed here. So we went up there, me and a friend of mine, and we were taking these pictures, and this one showed up.
Wow.
Is it the sun, a streak of the sunlight? I really don't think so.
Okay. Now we come to my favorites. My favorites with the
Oh, yeah.
the question I always ask is, why do shadow figures wear hats? So here's one. This is you can't identify the place, but it's close to Skinwalker Ranch, right?
Yeah, I can identify it. It's just okay, there's a friend of mine, name's Paul. He owns a cattle ranch outside of East Carbon here. It's like 1,800 acres down here. And then up on the mountain, up kind of going on the other side towards Fort Duchesne. He owns like 800 acres up there. He owns pretty much a whole canyon.
Okay.
And he's got these little cabins that he rents out to elk hunters. And he's only 28 miles from the Skinwalker branch if you go in a straight line.
Okay.
And he's got these pictures that he took. He's got trail cams set up all over. And this one showed up, and he's wearing a hat.
Love it.
That's a different view of it.
That's a great picture.
Yeah. And and that's a closer view of it.
And there you get that dark thing again, where there's no light whatsoever.
Yeah. Now this location, I've talked to years ago, one of the restaurants here in Price. I was in there eating lunch one day, and the cook found out that I was doing ghost hunting and paranormal investigations. And he was a Navajo Indian, and he came out and sat down and spent his lunch hour, and we talked. And he was talking about the Skinwalker Ranch, and I was basically just listening to him. And his father used to work on the ranch before the Shermans had it, when the previous owner had it, before the Shermans. And pretty much he was telling me some pretty weird stuff that was happening on there. And it got so bad that, he quit.
Wow.
And didn't want to go back there anymore.
Okay. So now we come to the best, my favorite photograph. Here it comes. I love it. This is from the same ranch, right? From one of the trail cams?
Yeah, this is from the trail cam. And this is the little trail that comes into where the cabins are. You can't get there in a 4-wheel drive truck because of there's not enough clearance going through these trees, he said. You have to go in on 4-wheelers, or you have to hike in. And this one came up on one of his trail cam shots. It's a real good picture. It's a partial, it's not a total manifestation, but the one leg looks like the right leg's good. The left leg is
Still in the other dimension.
No arms.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a shadow person.
Wow.
And it almost looks like someone there's such a square part here on it, that it looks like someone wearing a backpack or holding a device, because you see this square edged kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, I see that.
And it could be if his arms are up, it's almost like somebody turns legs sideways, but their upper body twisted, and
Yeah,
and their arms are up in front of them, if that's their back. I'm just saying it almost looks like you're looking at a backpack on somebody.
yeah, it's possible that, it could
I
be
mean-
one of the hunters, taken off or something,
But
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's a neat
that's
picture.
a good photo. And is that snow yeah, obviously snow on the
Yeah.
ground and trees.
No. That's just ground, right? It's taken at night with a camera. No,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
a tree
this is
falling
at
down
night.
in front of them there.
Oh, but it kind of
Yeah.
looks like back here, like there's some snow on tree branches, no?
Yeah, there's snow.
Oh,
Oh,
there is
there is,
snow.
okay.
Okay, I was gonna say, it sure looked like snow.
And this is one of the videos, and I don't know if it's going to be able to show. It should be playing here. I'm not sure if it's clear enough for people to see.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
I
moving.
can see it.
Yeah, I can see something. Yeah.
Okay, this was done at an old bar in Helper that had been abandoned for like 35 years. And the owner let us in, and what we like to do is set up a video camera in different locations and then run them for a couple hours, and then we leave, lock the place up and go. And there wasn't anybody in this building at all when this video was taken. And this was taken with an old DV Sony camera. And they're real
Ron,
bad for this pixelation.
Did that camera have night vision on it? Is that what
Yeah.
we're looking? So
Yeah.
the room's completely dark in that
Yeah.
video.
Yeah, we had a separate black light shining,
So if
But,
that was someone walking in the background, that would be someone walking in pitch black
yeah.
with no light source. Interesting, really neat.
Yeah, if you see it, yeah. And then it
Now,
kind
are
of
you saying there's an
disappears.
image in the back? Because I'm not seeing that on my screen.
Yeah, there's something walking in the background
Oh, very cool.
in the center.
Oh, now I
Pretty
see it.
clear.
Now, oh, yes, now I see it. Yes, I did. I just saw it go from right to left in the background. I saw
Yeah.
that.
Now over on the
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, there's somebody walking. Wow, that's great.
Yeah. now we got another one, but it's not on here, from the Schofield School. It was built in 1900. And the Schofield town uses it for a, okay, well, I'll get back to that one. We'll talk about this one.
Okay.
Anyways, okay. There's another one that I got that I didn't put on here. This one's kind of hard to see, but if you look along the right side of this door,
Yeah, I see it.
there's a, this was another one. The camera was set up. I left the building. I was doing this investigation by myself.
Yeah, so
And I
to the right
locked
of the door in front of that white section of wall. Yeah, something moves right to left for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
Interesting.
Wow.
Now, this used to be the, this is a restaurant in Price. It used to be the, what am I thinking? The Elks Lodge. And this
Now, it
is in
sounds
the
like we're
basement.
getting, Ron, are we getting some muffled EVP there too? Is that what we're hearing?
Yeah, yeah,
it some very
there's
muffled
some
EVP?
EVPs in there, but they're real hard to distinguish.
Yeah.
But this used to be the Elks Lodge, and
Ah,
in this room here, where this door is, they used to do dog hunting or dog fighting, excuse me,
Wow.
back during the early 50s. And I got an EVP of actual dogs barking in there.
well, and this object moving right to left looks low and shorter than the door. Maybe it's a partial
Yeah.
on a dog.
It's possible. If it is, it's a pretty big dog.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So that's Ron's photos. Thank you, Ron. I've got a couple more I'll show here. This is one, Chris Bledsoe and Lori Wagner. And there's an orb. Bob McGuire would have been here to explain it, but there's a shadow person and Lori Wagner, if you know her.
Yeah, that's the red and with the brown hair is I think Lori from the back. And then there's a big bright orb down low.
Yeah.
And then the black person was somebody not there, is my understanding.
Yeah.
That's a shadow person.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, and Chris had a lot of shadow experiences in the first period. He'd have to explain if there was anything after that, but I know when I had the experience with him in 2013, we discussed, and he talked about the the two-dimensional shadow people moving along the wall at very high speed, going right through the wall into the next room and stuff like that. I talked to everybody in the family about it, and everybody confirmed, yeah, they'd heard the footprints. They'd either ran into the shadow people or the footprints, and at one point, Yvonne was pushed in the kitchen by some sort of force. So he had a lot of this stuff. So what I basically did is I contacted Lisa Romanek in Colorado, because they had a lot of experiences. And I said to Lisa, did you have any shadow people during your experience? And she sort of laughed and said, yeah, you'd like to see some, would you like a photograph? And so this is the last photograph. This is from the Romanek house. This is sent to me by Lisa, and they had a number of, they were able to capture the shadow person. And that's the thing, a lot of experiencers experience this, and
Yes.
It seems to be part of the phenomena, and it's not something that's exclusive to Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, shadow being
And then the key,
experiences are common. Yes.
Yeah, and so let me do the last one here. And I always have this joke about why do ghosts wear clothes? Why do aliens not have sex organs? And why do shadow people wear hats? The last story I'll tell you is we were last year, there was a film crew, Desta and I were the film crew in Manitoba, and there was one of these orb lights that sits on the railway track, and they wanted to film this thing. And so we were sitting there, it was pretty cold, and we had the camera set up right beside the railway, maybe 10 feet from the track. And of course, the train comes through there at maybe 60 miles an hour. And I guess the guy saw the cameras and all the people. It looked like a film crew standing there. And he phoned the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is the federal police force, to come and arrest us or get rid of us or whatever. So this federal police officer coming, he's an Aboriginal guy. And so he comes and he says, what's going on here? And we sort of explain, and we're doing this filming, and we're looking for the light at the end of the road. He didn't know much about that, but as soon as he heard it was about UFOs, he starts talking to us, and he's talking, and he's getting all these calls from dispatch, and the dispatch is saying, are you coming back? Are you okay? And the guy, and then he go, 15 more minutes. And he just kept, I'm not sure how long it was a long time. Desta can maybe jump in, whether it was an hour and a half, or he was there a long time. And he wanted to know, and all he wanted to talk to me about was these Aboriginal, almost like the Skinwalker thing, the Aboriginal reserves, and they were seeing the shadow figure with the hat. And he said, did you investigate this? And I said, no, I've never heard about this. And he said, oh, you got it. He was giving me the names of these different reserves where I should go, and they were all experiencing this sort of thing. And so that's always my main question of a shadow person. I mean, why a shadow person would wear a hat. So I'll end it at that. And we'll go back to, are we off? No, I'll stop share here. And then if you want to show that photo you have of the that you had.
Oh, I'd have to grab it off here. Let me see if I can grab it quickly. It's no
Yeah.
big deal. It's just the Jerome Hotel. But it's
Yeah,
pretty
we
good.
saw some of those at the hotel at Espis Park in Colorado. That's where they did the movie, the
Shining.
Shining.
Yes.
Shining. Yeah, we went to the room there,
Okay.
and so they have all these photos that people
Let me see if this works.
in the hotel
This
take,
is
and they post them all.
the first thing I'm going to show is just they saw the orb and they took the picture, and now this picture is trimmed down so it's missing some of what was like a spiral on the right, but it apparently the orb came up the stairs. That was a hallway with stairs going down, and turned the corner going down the other hallway. But let me see if this works, holding it up. to the camera if I don't get reflection. Yeah, you can see it pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Okay, yeah. So there's that. And you can see right here, it's trimmed off part of it, but you can kind of see a little bit of the spiral, and it's coming up the stairwell and then heading down the hallway. That's at the Jerome Hotel. And then this next one is kind of a shadow person, full body apparition coming down the hallway. So there's, see, can you see that? Yeah. So
Oh, yeah,
they're both
yeah,
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get a little, there we go. I can tilt it so there's less shine on it, but there you go.
Beautiful.
Okay. Yeah. So those two, and then and I have some others here pinned to the board of a local restaurant that's the oldest business establishment still in existence here in Sedona. And it used to be called Rainbow's End. And when they filmed all the old, in the 40s and 50s, all these old, this is really famous here for filming old Westerns. And so a lot of, you watch old Westerns and you see scenes of Sedona in the background and the rock formations. It's really cool. Some really good ones too. And this one restaurant was like the old watering hole that everyone would go to. And it was called Rainbow's End. It's now called Relics. The building's been added onto and stuff since then, but it's known for haunted activity. And so I have a couple of what looks like ectoplasma and orb photos that are from there as well. So,
Okay.
yeah. And so, as a team, we did so many investigations of homes and famous places. We recorded over 300 EVP, electronic voice phenomena, class A. We got more than that, but about 300 of them were class A's, meaning the kinds you can hear right away. And anyways, but
Okay.
these other photos that I have here in Sedona were not investigations I did. They were by other people. And so I
Okay.
just,
Good.
in the effort
Okay,
of
Matt.
full disclosure.
Got one more question for Ryan. Is that all right? Can I do it?
Yeah, you got Ryan here. You wanted him here, and so
Right
now
on.
you got a chance to ask him questions. And let's get it. Let me ask one before him. He's
All
under
right,
some
all
sort of
right.
non-disclosure agreement. What's this all about with the non-disclosure agreements? Why are they?
I was going to ask that too.
Oh, that's okay. So I stole your question.
Well, I got another one after.
Well, think of another one. Okay.
So what was the question? I apologize.
Why are there non-disclosure agreements? We understand you have some of these things. What's the deal behind that? I can see the government doing it, but why would private citizens or have people? I heard the one story where, if you go on, the guy didn't want to go on the ranch because if he went on the ranch, then he'd have to sign the non-disclosure agreement and he didn't want to sign. I don't know if that was you, but what's the deal with the non-disclosure agreement? And do you think if Brandon Fugel figures something out, he's going to make it public?
That I don't know. I've only heard about the transparency, so that would be where I would initially react. My initial reaction would be, but the non-disclosure agreements are there's a variety of different ones, as you mentioned. There is the one that if you come on, you have to sign it. There are others that if with the tantalizing possibility of I don't know
Is that
other
because
things.
they just don't want to ruin stuff for the TV show ahead of time? Like
Absolutely.
they don't want you to
that's
talk.
another-
Yeah, they don't want you
absolutely
talking
another
about
venue.
it because it's
Sure.
for the TV show. I have one with a TV show I just filmed, not to talk about it till they said as soon as it airs, you can talk all you want, but until it airs, nothing.
Mhm.
I said, okay.
Yeah.
Are you still under NDA, Ryan, with any of these guys?
Sure. And I was just going to get back to the shadow people. You can see those in the middle of the day sometimes. Yeah, I mean, in fields and pastures in some of these locations, and it's pretty wild stuff. I have gathered some shots of them, and that bed and breakfast that I owned. Many people witnessed and encountered them walking around there as well. But yeah, there's definitely something to these beings that can. They're almost devoid of light.
Yeah,
even when you see them in the middle of the day on a sunny day. So really cool.
That was my theory, that they're trying to manifest and they're taking energy or light out of the area in order to be able to manifest. That's, I don't know if that's what's going on. That's just my theory.
Ryan, you mentioned that you're doing your own research. Are you currently doing stuff? Can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. Other than engaging the phenomenon, I'm trying to through various methods anticipate where things will take place, because as you guys have mentioned, there is a patterning of sorts that goes along with this typical behavior. And when you find things in the same locations, or you see things in the same locations, you start to wonder if those locations are not portal-like, or have the ability to allow things from beyond our spiritual energy barrier to come through back and forth. And it does seem as if, depending on the weather, what time of night, things like this, parts of the days of the calendar, and other cosmological things, that there is a phenomena related to how these things come through. And if you find these patterns, it seems that yes, inclement weather is better than, perfectly sunny day. Or you find that it's very farmer's almanac-y, but you find that a new moon is much more active than a full moon. So it's just silly stuff like that. But if you can like layer them all, you can kind of tell what you're looking at, depending on a investigation.
Interesting. I didn't know you had any books. I just found that out the other day. I found one on Amazon. Where can we find your books, and where can we find you online? And
Yeah, you can.
Melinda and Ron too, if you guys want to tell us about your stuff after too.
Yeah, the books you can find on Amazon. One is the Utah UFO Ranch. The other is Shapeshifter Territory, and there is an earlier book there. You can find them on Amazon, and you can find me at heroparanormal.com. I have a small podcast, or you can kind of check in with the property up there in the basin, or at least one of the properties where I'm doing investigations, and that's spacewolfresearch.com. And yeah, just definitely feel free to reach out and communicate if you need to.
Absolutely. I'm coming to see you soon, man. As soon as I can. I'll be up there.
Say your prayers before you go, man.
Yeah, I will. I'll get Destin to bless me.
That's right. That's right.
Destin will brief you before you go. She'll get you in the Ron, in the right direction.
I can
Ron,
too.
Ron, you said you had a YouTube channel. What's that?
Oh, it's just Ron Johnson channel. It's my name, and it's Utah Paranormal Files. And I've been trying to do these EVPs, but I can't. YouTube, I can't post a video file. I have to put it onto a video, and then some of the EVPs, you can't hear them.
Well, reach out to Desta and I. We can help you out with that. We can help you out.
I'm gonna have to see if I can find a cloud to put them on, and then link to them.
Mm-hmm.
Ron, you've also got a book that we've been encouraging you to finish. Talk a little bit about your book and your journal. You've been keeping a journal. You've probably documented this thing for half a century. So talk a little bit about your book. Are we going to see it? Are we going to be able to edit it or get it out there?
I'm still working on it. I've got it wrote. I'm just trying to blend it together to make it so it not sound like a darn automotive parts catalog or a phone book. It's weird. It's hard. It's, because you just list all these encounters you've had, and it just comes out like a catalog, and I don't like that, and I'm trying to fix that.
Because you've had a lot of experiences, right? A lot of
I have
a lot of ET experiences.
Lots of ET experiences. Actually, they started, when I was a young age, but I've never really talked about them that much. And then it can actually the weird stuff started happening, and when I was a junior in high school.
Okay.
And then it went on, and I went to Hawaii for a job, and it followed me there. And this follows you too. The ETs.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you go, they'll show up. And in 2008, my encounters took a whole different approach. They became more conscious, spiritual in nature. The ones before that they were kind of scary, and they bothered me a lot. But things just did a 360 turnaround after 2008. After I was involved in a pretty bad industrial accident, and I've got some spinal cord damage because of that. And I was having a hard time. But anyways, I had a healing. And ever since this healing in 2009, I've been able to move, been able to dress myself without help.
Wonderful.
And the being that you're dealing with is LB, right?
LB, right, correct.
And you're an artist, you've drawn LB. Would there be a one particular message that he's given you in terms of something for your life? What is he giving you, other than he took you to the spirit world with your mother? I remember that was the most bizarre story, where you talk about going in the building that's 10 times the size inside, or whatever, which people describe inside UFOs, and the crystals, which people talk about. But is there a message that he's got out there in terms of what we should be focusing on? Because that's what we're basically looking at tonight, is what do we focus on? What is this all about? Where are we going with this thing? How do we sort this thing out? Did you learn anything through all these experiences with over half a century?
I'm still trying to figure him out, because he's very, very, very vague on what he tells me. You know, and I've asked him thousands of questions, and he never answers.
Yeah.
It's like he gives me hints, and I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
But
it's almost like the Bigelow thing.
It has to do with holy cow, how do I put that?
Mhm.
Being in tune with oh God, being more in tune with reality, with consciousness, other than the physical, you know, trucks, cars, motorcycles, that kind of stuff. There's more to life than that. He's been showing me a lot of the afterlife, a lot of what it's like on different astral planes between earth and heaven. And it's almost like he's preparing me for something on the other side. That's the feeling I get.
Wow.
That
So you do it again, right?
what's that?
You do it again?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody got any more questions? Matt, you were all excited to, you got your last chance here.
Oh, I asked the last question. That was good. I just wanted to know about Ryan's recent research and where to find him. Melinda, do you have any
Yes.
books out, or your YouTube channel, or any information like that?
I've not written my own book, but my research and or experiences are actually included in 30 books now. I think I just hit number 30 actually. And but not my own book yet. What I do have right now is I'm in a brand new movie, the third movie by the folks from J3 Films. They did Extraordinary, the Stan Romanek story, and Extraordinary, the Seeding, which came out like 2 years ago, but I'm in. And then they have the new one, which just came out 3 days ago, Extraordinary, the Revelations. And I'm in that one. So it's, you know, mainstream documentary. I'm very, very excited and thrilled to have been included. They interviewed me a lot and whittled it way down for the sake of time for the movie, but I told them ahead of time. They were so gracious and gave me so much time in the second one that it was completely fine if they had to edit me way down for the third one. And so they did, but that's fine. But I'm very proud to be in it. And Grant, you'll love, if you haven't seen it yet, you just said, why are these things going on? Okay, well, that movie addresses specifically like 4 different world points of view on why abductions are happening and why a hybridization program. But it really, really addresses that. there are parts that, depending on your belief system, there's whichever your belief system is, some of the other parts will piss you off because it's designed by the makers of the movie to make people think and to consider all these different worldviews, and know that even though you may disagree with them, a lot of people hold each of these views, you know, so it really makes you think. It ends up being a very deep movie. And it also brings the abduction subject into the disclosure subject. So for that reason, I think it's very timely, very important, because it says the abduction, the disclosure topic needs to cover the abduction subject, and it gets into that. So I'm very proud to be in that. My website to get a hold of me is UFOsightingtours.com, tours with an S on the end. So again, that's the name of my company too, UFOsightingtours.com. And I post a lot of stuff to follow my research or anything I've got going on, speaking engagements. I have a TV show I just filmed that's going to be coming out and everything. And I post all that stuff when it's happening on Facebook and Twitter. So if you're following me on Facebook and Twitter, that's where I'll put stuff. There you go.
And Bob McGuire is coming to your place right away, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to be coming this week. Bob and his wife Susan are supposed to be coming, and this coming week, and I'm really looking forward to that. I got to find out. I blocked out 2 whole days, although I think they're only going to be here one of them, so I need to clarify. But I'm looking forward. I'm sorry he wasn't able to join us tonight, but I look forward to hanging with him for a bit. That'll be really fun.
Beautiful. And finally, Ryan, you've done a couple of books. You're pretty close to the center of the hurricane here, or the tornado. What's your evaluation? If you were to guess, and all you can do is guess, we're all into the belief thing. What do you think's going on, and what should we pay attention to?
I think we should definitely pay attention to the direction that disclosure is going, even though a lot of people believe it's already happened in you know, the breadcrumbs. But I think that, all roads lead to this area we're discussing. And it's funny how, you know, whether you're looking at defense intelligence or just things that go bump in the night, there are certain areas that are prone to this, Sedona being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they, you know, these, for whatever reason, these areas offer a unique view or peer behind the veil into possibly ancient spirit devices, precognitive intelligences, or in the parlance of our times and science in the direction it's going, alien artificial intelligence. It really is semantics, what you describe it as. But I think that, you know, these consciousnesses are very, very able. They have heightened abilities to mimic and to interact with us. The purpose is the biggest question of all.
In terms of black ops, the big boys, do you have the impression that they understand this and people just don't know? Because they're talking about nuts and bolts and technology and all this kind of stuff. Do you think there's actually people who understand what's actually going on in terms of the consciousness aspect? Because when you hear Tyler D praying and stuff like that, you go, yeah, I think some of these guys know what's going on here. And do you think that there are people, have you run into people that would indicate that there are people who actually understand beyond the physical nuts and bolts of just what's going on?
Absolutely, for sure. And going into some of the research that I've been engaging with others, without naming everybody's names, but a lot of technologies do amp up or heighten our ability to reach beyond the veil. There are technologies in the forms of lights, these lamps known as Anja lamps, which can mimic the DMT experience through a series of flashing. That is something that is very unique and can be turned right off afterwards. And then something called the God helmet, which is very useful. It's a helmet that was designed by medical professionals to help people after strokes neurologically. And it basically photobiomodulates through a series of basically EMF pulses, and different parts of the brain can be activated, and you can get to that unique position to interact with some of these things fairly quickly. That's the reason they call it the God helmet, is higher intelligences seem to be easily introduced into the experience when the observer is kind of primed. But of course, this can be done through breath work, through prayer, through meditation, through all these things. So I think it doesn't really matter, the tool that you bring, just make sure that you're on the same page of what you want to accomplish.
That's right.
Which leads to the contact modality of remote viewing. Both you and Melinda have done it. When you listen to them about the very strict protocols and the accuracy that they claim, have you ever targeted or had done a target which involved Skinwalker Ranch? Either of you?
No, I've not remote viewed Skinwalker Ranch. I haven't even thought to do it, but you just gave me an idea.
Yeah. As long as it's
I haven't done
blinded,
it yet.
that's what they say. As long as the target is blinded, that you don't really know what the target is. Because once you know what the target is, then you're
front
analytical
loaded.
overlay
Yeah,
steps and
you're
stuff.
what you already know about it comes into play, and so that's both Ryan and I are going to be all messed up because we know too much about it. So well, he knows more than I do, but I know from reading the books and hearing the lectures and stuff. But but you can still, for your own personal use, you can still view it and look into it, and maybe learn some stuff, in doing so. It'd be interesting to learn something that we haven't heard about and then go to someone like Brandon Fugel to see if we can back up what we found out. That would
or
be
whether
good.
they've done it, whether they've hired someone to do it, which is a possibility.
Well, back with the Bigelow group, let's say, I have every reason to believe that someone I know who's a remote viewer was used in some remote viewing stuff in regards to that. I don't know exactly how or how much, but someone I know who is a remote viewer was used. Yeah.
Okay. And Ryan?
Yeah. Going back to that, just to go more into that, the group that did view the Bigelow Ranch, they didn't know what they were viewing. They viewed very similar things. They had some very intriguing and interesting views come out of that. And it's a very real phenomenon. Like everybody here has mentioned, they had no idea what they were viewing. And yet many of the same things came up in the views. And it was the Nevada Remote Viewing Group at the time who did it. And it was, I think that this is something that is now the cat's out of the bag, and people are using remote viewers in a lot more cases than they used to.
Nevada Remote Viewing Group, is that Angela Thompson and her people?
It sure is.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. I know who they are.
Beautiful. So we'll leave it at that. We can maybe
what-
do another one down the road. I appreciate everybody coming on and sharing their expertise.
One quick thing, two things. One is you brought up and you were asking Ryan, do the covert guys really know? Well, yeah. I mean, whether you're talking about the working group and what they knew, or you can go deeper and say in the MILAB events, which you guys know that I research, and I've had those experiences, I can tell you these guys absolutely know the answer to some of these questions. The thing is, it's so compartmentalized, they know it and they're not sharing it. So, that's why I think the Senate and Congress doesn't have a clue. The president doesn't have a clue. It's deep black ops. But I tell you, at that level, that the MILABs and the DUMs, the deep underground military bases, and the reverse engineering programs at those levels, those guys absolutely know. No doubt.
Okay.
Oh, and one very quick thing, because I didn't get to share it yet and I forgot, and I just thought of it. 2 nights ago on my tour, we saw a significant structured craft, a great big cigar ship, literally like mothership. This giant thing comes in, really large, all glowing, all amber, giant cigar ship. Then it comes in, hovers almost over us at about an angle like this in the sky. It powers up. I mean, it's really close. So it's a couple inches long at like arm's length. It powers up, then it starts to dim down significantly. And that's when it dimmed down, we really saw the clear, long, this was a long, solid thing. And we also saw in the beginning of the night, we saw the Starlink satellites. Apparently a brand new launch was just done by Elon Musk of the Starlink. So we had that go over. And that was last night, but I'm talking the night before. So we had this big amber thing came, it powered down, it started to go straight up. And it got to about from, originally being a couple inches long to then being about 1/4 of an inch at arm's length. And we all of us were putting up our night vision. So far, we're looking with our own eyes. We'd put up our night vision, and with the night vision, you could see this long, thin, you know, again, cylinder shape, cigar ship, very long. And then it phased out from front to back, where it started to go transparent at the front end, and it, like a wave going over it, went and transparent to the back end.
Wow.
And it was just a remarkable sighting, and my clients and I were blown away. You guys are the first people I've said this to. This is the first time I've talked about it, and I should be telling everyone, because it was I mean, I've seen now, that's the 58th structured craft we've seen on my tours, number 58 with full structure. But this one was just really a standout, like, because its size, the drama, the way it went up, and then it phased out. I mean, it's just like mind blowing.
Wow. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Matt, if you're going to see Ryan over there in Utah, stop by Melinda's and see some structured craft on the way there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will.
I'd love to take any of you guys. I look forward to taking you.
Strangeness.
Okay, thanks a lot for everybody's participation, and let's do it again soon.
Thank you so much.
And we have our own Skinwalker here, by the way. We have Bradshaw Ranch. We have, it might be more Skinwalker-y than Skinwalker. We have an incredible place here, Bradshaw Ranch, that needs Bigelow or someone like him with a bunch of money to do an investigation, because there's a lot of stuff going on there currently.
Beautiful. Thanks, Melinda.
Yes,
thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Thank you, everybody.